Today we read Ezekiel chapter 3 from verse 12 to the end of the chapter. On Monday we read Ezekiel's great vision of the court of heaven, and this passage picks up at the end of that account. We read that Ezekiel was stunned and speechless after his experience, and no wonder. The exiles by the river were some of those who had been exiled from Jerusalem by the conquering Babylonians in the 6th century before Christ. Ezekiel must have been quite a prominent priest to have been taken away at that stage. Soon afterwards, Zedekiah, the puppet king, attempted to rebel against Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar returned to Jerusalem and totally destroyed the city and the temple. This was a traumatic national disaster and could have meant the end of the nation altogether. Certainly, it threatened the identity of the nation and its faith with the loss of the temple. It was a crisis and a turning point. Ezekiel was one of the exiled leaders who was able to reshape the faith and find new ways of expressing and asserting the power of Yahweh over the pagan gods, despite the outward appearance of Yahweh's defeat and humiliation. Ezekiel recognised that God's power continued, that God was still Lord, independent of the fortunes of his covenant people. This was not self-evident at the time, when defeat in battle meant defeat of one's gods, as well as one's army. At the same time, Ezekiel realised that the nation needed to learn important lessons, that there was a need to repent and reform and cleanse themselves from corruption. Their worship should be more genuine, their lives reflect more closely the character of their God. We can't help seeing some lessons for us today in this. How significant it is that such an extraordinary new vision of God should come at such a time when most people would have said, God has abandoned us, we are alone, or even God is dead, God is defeated, God is no more. Far from it. Instead, God gives a new revelation, a new vision, a new prophet. When the nation went through the deepest crisis of its history, God prepared Ezekiel for his coming vision of bones coming back to life. Yes, it was a crisis, but it brought such opportunity, a new beginning. This is the way to see our situation as we come out of our recent crisis. How do we want the bones of our lives to come to new life? What is our vision? What form do we want our faith, our lives to take in the future? We begin to recognise that back to normal is not quite right, is not quite what we want to happen. What will the new normal be like? What shape will it take? We can pray for that vision, to see it. We can pray for hope and faith to see what God is doing, even through this time of crisis, to see the new opportunities that God is giving us.